I've seen it firsthand being a contractor. I completely understand, that those payments go from expecting in 15 to 30 days. And next thing you know, yeah, they're 100 days later, you're still trying to collect. Can you describe that process a little bit more and, what it's like to be a contractor and how long it takes to get paid?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Construction is one of the more unique industries where, if you're like, let's say you run a small consulting firm or you're a lawyer or you run a medical clinic. The typical invoicing process is, you send an invoice to the customer and it's like a one-page document. You could generate a PDF and send it via email. That one-page document, there's a number and the customer just pays that number. And usually that's within a few weeks. But construction is unique where down to the invoicing process, how the invoice is approved, how the invoice is financed, there's so many workflows and nuances, right? So if you're in the commercial construction industry, for example, you're working on these sort of archaic documents that your listeners are familiar with, AIA forms and lien waivers and, all these sorts of documentation that's different state by state in the United States. If you go to other countries like Canada, Canada has its own kind of set of documentation that's unique. And so you as a subcontractor or specialty contractor, you're sending this to the GC. The GC is then kind of approving that and then sending it to the developer / client. The client is then approving it. And, that could be weeks of back and forth, at each step. And then that's being sent ultimately to a bank. And the bank oftentimes is doing its own review and making sure that all the compliance is in place and all the work that's being told that's completed is actually, in fact, completed. And then releasing funds, and then the funds kind of flow down this funnel back to the final stakeholder. And so oftentimes, if you're a smaller company, be it a specialty contractor or a supplier, you are literally, in best case scenario, 55 days away from being paid. Right. But what's what's more typical is like 80 to 100 days. And that's, even that is sort of generous. In certain cases, we've seen it to be way, way longer. And then if you go on to the residential construction side, you have not as many documents per se, but you still have a ton of like compliance that you need to do to make sure that, in an adverse scenario, you protect yourself. But then, you have clients who are perhaps not as cash rich. And so you then have to sort of kind of chase them. And, a lot of residential projects go belly up because clients just don't have enough money.